All right, this is Ryan over at Ryan Talks. Welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, like, helps out a lot. The title of this video is going to be how to use the book Letting Go in your everyday life, or close to it anyways. All right, so here's the title screen. So I've been reading the book Letting Go by David Hawkins, and I know he's not around anymore, but he really has been an influence over me. I read Power versus Force many years ago. The book Letting Go by David Hawkins is probably one of my favorite books that I've ever read. It's actually so good. I don't normally buy books because I like to listen to books, but I actually bought this one just so I had it. And the method that I'm going to talk about in this video is a method that I've been using over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's helped me quite a bit. Now, has it been perfect? Perfect ride? No, but it has helped me quite a bit get rid of some of the underlying thoughts and everything that I've got floating around in my head. And I wanted to just talk about that process. So imagine if you've constantly, all right, so one of the things that I always have a hard time with is going to sleep because my mind runs, or sometimes I'll float off while I'm on a shift for the artwork, and you should see some of the stuff that I hand in because my mind is just like all over the place, right? So I started listening to this book. And I started reading, and I started listening, and I started reading, and I kind of explored it, and I kind of like dissecting this book. And I didn't quite catch this the first time around. And the second time around, I got more out of it. And I think most people do that on the second, third, fourth, or whatever time around, like a self-help book. So the what I got out of this is to not try to, I don't know, say you have a thought of abandonment, or say you have a thought of, like you're in relationships that breaking up like mine, and you've got this fear of being alone like the rest of your life, or something like that, which is something that I've dealt with over the last I don't know, couple weeks. It just hit me like out of nowhere, bam, like it's just there it is. And I've been thinking about this all the time. And then, I had other women come into my life, and then, it was just a weird situation. And then I got all this stuff running through my head, and I reread or re-listened to the book, and chapter 2 anyway. And he says to sit there with the thought and actually acknowledge it and bring it in more. Like if you're feeling, I don't know, say fear, just bring it in more. Just welcome it in. Just, keep welcoming this thought in, whatever thoughts that are going in. But the feeling more so is more important actually than the thoughts themselves. Because you can have any kind of thought whatsoever off of any feeling, but you've got to pinpoint the feeling that you're having. So in the back here, in the appendix, he actually has, some of the feelings that you can go through, or the energy states in the appendix. And I don't know if you can see that, probably not, but it starts off at shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. I will probably put those on the screen, on the black screen, so you can read them. And I might even put how they vibrate, because there's a different vibration for each one. And as an example of vibration, Jesus was said to have vibrated at 1,000, and this chart actually only goes to 700. So how do they know that? I don't know. Maybe somebody was back there with a Hertz meter and, zapping him and testing him out, see what he was vibrating at. I have no idea. The way this works is you acknowledge the thought. You don't try to sweep it under the rug. You don't try to have it float off. You don't try to float off mentally. I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but you can actually just kind of be the observer of your life. You just come back in. You acknowledge the feeling that you're going through, and you welcome it in, actually. You actually welcome it in. Because when you approach something with a reverse energy, or like the reverse magnetism of what you're doing, chances are you're going to repel it. So if you're wanting something really bad in your life, but you want, you repel that thing. So if you want a relationship, if you want a car, if you want a house or whatever, or if you want, to move somewhere and you want it real bad, you desire it, you want it, those energies are going to actually push those things away from you. But if you just acknowledge that you desire these things, you kind of get rid of the attachment to these things, they start coming to you. It's kind of like the magnetism that starts coming to you, But if you reverse the poles on a magnet, it just shoots it right off. And so when you start acknowledging this stuff and you just start you want more of it, you're going through this. You want these relationships and you find the feeling that you're having, and you just are like, all right, I want more of that. I want more. And you don't have to say this out loud. You just mentally are like, yeah, I want, more of that. And all of a sudden the thing is just gone. It's just gone. Now, it's not to say that it's not returning in the future, but at that moment in time where you need to get to sleep or when you need to get work done or whatever, the thought is gone. And sometimes it just doesn't come back. You will get to the point where you're not going to actually notice this, but other people will notice this about you, that you are a different person. Now, you're not any better than you were. You're not any worse than you were. You're just different. And people are going to start noticing this, but you're not going to actually notice this because you don't have those feelings anymore, and they're just going to be gone. So once you clear that subconscious out, once you if you visualize it well, I don't know how many people use regular computers anymore, but like the trash bin on your desktop or like on your MacBook or whatever, and when you clear the trash bin out, it's gone. It's not coming back. That's how this is. Once you acknowledge it, once you can find it, once you can fish it out, basically, once you have it, acknowledge it, give attention to it, ask for more of it. And the more you want more of it, the more you repel it away, and it just goes away. Now, this might take a little while, and it might sound counterintuitive, but it works so incredibly well. It's insane. People who actually get this, letting go process, they can get rid of diseases. They can get rid of all hardships in their life. They can really change their life just by acknowledging what it is that you're going through and letting go. But you have to acknowledge it to let it go. You can't just try to do mindfulness meditation and, stare at a wall and, try to hang upside down or do mushrooms mushrooms in my last video. I don't know what I keep mentioning, but you can't do all this stuff. You can't just, go for a long car ride. You can't I'm just going to move states and the feeling is going to get left behind in the other state. So you have to actually just sit down. And that is probably the hardest part. But once you realize that all you have to do is acknowledge it, Dr. David Hawkins, he cut his thumb off, and I was listening to the story of him talk about this, and he just acknowledged that it happened in that moment, and the body just stopped bleeding. Now, I wasn't there. I'm assuming he's not lying. I don't know why you would make this up. I do know that his thumb was missing because, he used to like to show it in his little seminars. But he said he acknowledged it, and he actually had the board that he cut his thumb off with, and there was 8 drops of blood. So once you get to a point where you can actually just accept what you're going through and acknowledge what you're going through, you can get to a place where it's no longer there. And I think that is a very good place to be. Now, you might even sit down. What I do is I sit down and I ask myself, what am I going through? So another thing that you can do is you can actually sit down with this book, this appendix, or you can just find a version of, they're everywhere. But you sit down and you're like, am I having any shame? And then you mentally ask yourself this, am I having any shame? And it's surprising how easily your body will respond to this. If you ask yourself, you sit down, no distractions, just you in a room, There was a famous author one time that said a man could get rid of all of his problems if he just sat alone in a room by himself for, I don't know how, like an hour a day. I mean, and I'm sure it's true. But you just go through the lower levels of this stuff, because obviously if you were at the higher levels of this stuff, you wouldn't even know that the lower level stuff is going on. So if you're watching this video, chances are you're at one of these lower levels. And you sit with it, you ask yourself, all right, what shame am I having and where is it coming from? Or something like that. And your body, your brain, your heart, your gut will actually start answering these questions. And then you ask yourself, well, just for in my example, like, why are you seeking another person so much? And the response was the fear of being alone. And then you're like, why do you fear being alone? And it responds, because while we're on this journey, we don't want to be alone. And you just keep asking yourself these questions, and eventually you get to the root of why it's happening. And in my case, once I got to the root of why it was happening, the rest just, it went away. I don't even remember the questions anymore. I don't even remember what it was that I was feeling, because it just disappeared. So if you sit with this, if you, maybe watch this video again, buy the book, buy the audio tape, the Audible, or was it called Audible, I think, and just absorb it. But honestly, you really can sum this book up into what I just did in this video, because I've listened to it twice now, and I actually own the book. But you really got to do this for yourself. I mean, I can't do it for you. He can't do it for you because he's not here anymore. Even when he was here, he couldn't do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. And I think once you realize that you've got to work on yourself and you can't always be distracted, like if you're always watching TV or talking about sports or always out riding bike, which is great. Actually, riding bike has helped me, but it doesn't always get to where you need it to be. Once you realize that you cannot run from this your whole life, well, I guess you can, but most of the stuff does form as a disease of some kind, or obesity or overeating or something, some compensation for this. Once you get to the bottom of why you're doing it, that stuff will stop. And that is it. That's my video. If you got any comments, questions, if you want me to go further into this, I would be more than happy to. Give me a like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.